Welcome to I Do What I Do, where we explore how and why folks do what they do to forge their path and create fulfilling, squiggly careers. I'm Zara Bartels, once a dancer, now a creative operator. And in this first season, we're in London, once my home for many years. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a creative soul, or just curious about what makes people tick, have a listen. You'll be inspired to do what you do better. Let's go.
I feel like I haven't done a clap in a while, haven't I, Idris?
No, you do every episode.
Do I? Okay. Maybe I haven't recorded in a minute. That's why. Hello, hello, hello.
Yo.
Manon
What's up?
Dave.
How you saying?
Finally got your ass in the seat.
I know. It was actually typically down to the wire, but we got it.
Yes, it was. And a bit of a cussing out this morning at 1:30 in the morning, too.
Yeah, I deserved it. I'll
But,
take it.
you know, that's what we do.
Yep.
We
keep it a buck.
we do it, we get it done, we move forward, and
We're here.
So
That's what's up.
welcome.
Thank you
to
so much. This is
I
amazing.
do what I do.
I do what I do. That's for sure.
You were the first person to hear about this idea.
That's crazy. I remember the exact moment. I was in
Accra.
Accra, Ghana, and passing out.
And I messaged you.
And you messaged me, and I'm like, I can't even type right now. I'm just gonna have to get on the phone to you. I'm pretty sure we spoke for well over an hour.
We did in the end, yeah.
And hearing about the idea of this show
Which
back
was supposed
then,
to be fake.
but it's amazing because like what ended up happening is between that time, which by the way wasn't long ago, like end of Feb, right? We're end of May now.
Yeah.
And how many episodes have you shot?
12. No. 13.
That's crazy.
By Sunday it would be 13.
That's what I mean. So it's flown. It's actually flown by.
It has.
I feel like I'm late to the party.
You are.
Having been getting the early slot.
You might get a little ups.
Let's see.
So, Manon, we've known each other for 10 years this December.
That's crazy.
And we recently had a little interaction on LinkedIn, and I commented that I was taking full credit for being responsible for bringing you back to the UK because you had once again done something amazing, which I will list off in a bit. But you'd once again done something amazing because you are a creative technologist, a product designer, and a musician. And let's not forget, you make cool shit.
That's the tagline.
That's our tagline.
Somehow emerged. But yeah, no, that is true.
I know when that emerged, you and I were talking, and I was like, you just make cool shit. And then that was from Rolly days.
Yeah.
And we were talking about making cool shit, and I think that just actually became the thread, and then it stuck, and then you started putting it on your decks. Your presentations, which just makes sense. But I remember when I saw it, and I was like, we talked about the fact that you just want to make cool shit on that L-shaped couch.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, going back to what you're saying, when you commented on my post the other day and said, I'm taking credit for bringing you back to the UK, that's actually facts. When I came back to the UK to start fishing for jobs, I was really not in a good place because obviously I'm passionate about music and technology. And at that juncture, it looked like my music tech career was basically over. I was pretty much ready to... in fact, I had already accepted a job, if you remember. And it wasn't me even trying to negotiate with you. I was literally saying, I need to take this job because I need to sustain my lifestyle and whatever with my family. And yet there you were. You had interviewed me for the role that I would say was definitely a pivotal role in my career that changed a lot. So... yeah, this is not the return of the favor. Trust me. There's a lot more IOUs there.
Firstly, I need to just come check you in Cambridge and chill with the fam first.
Yeah, 100%. That needs to happen.
I'm leaving soon, so we'll have to figure that out.
This is all tactical so that I get a holiday.
You know what? So many people have said that. They're like, thank you. It's about bloody time that you're doing this because we'll be there soon. And you know what? That's all part of the plan. That's all part of why I want to move home. And everyone is like, why are you doing it? The more I thought about it, I was like, actually, I don't want to be here. I feel like this is the next iteration of my journey, and I'm really excited. But that's part of what this podcast is about. That's part of what we do is about. And it's part of the next journey of my people with me. I'm really looking forward to some of the things I think we're about to kick into the Caribbean, where it will always be feel like vacation when we're working.
100%. You and I have a mutual friend, shout out Steve Octave, who made the move. Like, he did this actually before COVID, right?
To St. Lucia.
And I was thinking at the time, really, dude? It's not that far away from LA. You might as well just be in LA or whatever. But that was a masterstroke for him. I don't want to speak for him. You should get him on the podcast. But I think it's quite clear that he had peace of mind out there, creative space, did his thing, and it worked out. He accelerated his career outside
it's the
of
creative
St. Lucia.
space part that I'm looking forward to. But we're not talking about me. We're here to talk about you. A month ago, you wrote a birthday post, and you just listed some of the things that you did in the last year.
You got to repeat that one of all the posts.
It's a good post because it covers.
It's the most conceited thing I've ever written, but it was for a reason. I'll tell you why afterwards.
But not only that, dude. The reality is, this is stuff that you did.
That's the reason why I wrote it. That's the reason why I wrote it, because I had to remind myself.
So it don't matter if it's conceited or not. You did it. And so you should scream about it. And I'm a big fan of you shouting about the shit you do. Even though you make other people feel a little bit lame. Not because you're doing it on purpose, but because you work on some amazing fucking shit. So let me just say the things. May 23. So you're going back a year because
I'm not even cheersing you. I'm drinking here now.
I mean, we didn't even cheers. Oh, cheers, dude. I'm so glad you're here. Rum and ginger. So you produced a record with Idris, which was debuted at the Gucci Met Gala party. Spoke at NATO. I didn't even know that part. Then in June, you became the artistic director for TED Conferences, the first TED Tech event in London. And it was curated with Culture 3, which you're also creative director.
Yep.
Whatever with WWDC. That's not as cool as the other things. You attended WWDC.
I mean, I was hyped
I know
about
you were geeking out because you were hyped about it, but you've done way cooler things. You delivered a keynote for Mind Valley because you're now the chief product officer for Mind Valley. You've been doing that for about a year and a bit.
Year and a half, yeah.
That went quick.
Yeah, it's almost 2 years later on this year.
Dang.
Yeah.
You went on to be appointed the technology director in the... Excuse me. Oops. The immersive... I'm not even drunk. The immersive team at Oscar and BAFTA VX Studio Frame Store, which they do some amazing
they're crazy.
You launched a full scholarship for young girls in the name of your late daughter, Maya. That's beautiful. It's in collaboration with A.R. Rahman's KM Music Conservatory. Then you went on to build the first Mind Valley Vision Pro app.
Which is what I was doing in WWDC, by the way.
Okay, so they're connected. So fine. Going to WWDC made sense. All right, so that was just end of 2023.
Yeah.
Now we're into 2024. You launched Sound Drive in collaboration with will.i.am and Mercedes at CES. Oh my God, remember those CES and NAMM days at Rowley?
I know.
I'm sure this was a whole different experience.
It was, but at the same time, I was like having PTSD when I went there. But...
I hear that. You launched your new venture, so you are also a co-founder of Middle 8.
Which is based here at Taryard Studios, King's Cross. Which
is where we're filming. You will hear the shout-outs and the thank yous consistently to them. Then February, you went on and this is when we spoke.
Yeah.
You worked with Idris Elba to launch initiatives in collaboration with governments in Ghana and Nigeria to foster and fund creative industries in Africa.
Literally when we spoke.
Yeah.
Very night I got there.
Then you went and did your first headline speaking event with Shay Lingo, who you've also produced his album for, which is phenomenal. And then April, you did the proper launch of Sound Drive in China this time and with Lewis Hamilton. And then... it was your birthday.
Yeah.
And I feel like you probably haven't written a whole bunch of stuff.
It was a curated list.
But when someone rattles all those things off, you've worked at Native, you and I met at Rowley, you've worked at Education First, you've led the team that won awards for Education First, Frame Store, Mind Valley, Culture 3, Founder. There's a lot going on. When someone rattles all those things off, just blah, 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 word vomit, how do you feel?
To be honest, I know it's like super PC to say all this stuff now, but it was true. The day before my birthday, I was going through some stuff and yeah, I genuinely I felt like a combination of a bit of imposter syndrome in certain areas of what I was doing, and also the weight or the burden of, I think, doing what I'm trying to do more of now, which is trying to help people out, get people on, show people that actually there's an alternative way to go about your career, whatever. It went from being a dependency on me to an expectation that I should be helping certain folks with things. And all of a sudden I started to feel this pressure of like, why am I like feeling like I'm not doing enough, right? I'm actually feeling like I'm not doing enough. And I had to go back and remind myself
that you
had a pretty outrageous year by all measures, namely my own. I never dreamt of doing any of the things on the list that you mentioned. So that's how it made me feel. It made me feel like, okay, let me take a breath, start a new year afresh. There's a lot of stuff that I'm working on and I'm excited about. But one thing I should definitely not be feeling is that I'm not doing enough.
Yeah,
And
I think you need
yeah.
to do a little less, probably. As I said to you before we started recording, like, I'm going to call you out and say you're a bad friend, mate. But it's
Yeah.
because you're doing so much. So I will give you grace. I will be nice to a point.
Yes, but no, but it's a good point. One of the questions you asked me ahead of the thing today was like, what's the misconception or whatever about your role or your career or whatever? And I think I answered something along the lines of people don't really see all the stuff that goes into the work, right?
Yeah, they
Like,
see the amazing LinkedIn post. It was like, I was
Right.
just at the Vatican last week. Are you even Catholic?
I'm not. I went to a Roman Catholic high school.
See?
Qualifies. I know my Our Fathers. When I was answering that question and what I was feeling at that time when I wrote that post, it was that. It was like, yeah, people think that it's easy. So it's like, why are you not affording me this time? And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people who I was referring to in terms of the work. But naturally, I think my fault in all of that and the thing that I'm trying to like improve on myself is I do have a tendency to like, for good reasons, blur the lines between life and work or hobbies and work or family and work or whatever. To me, it's just like, surely the aim should be that you're just going through
Living.
life and living, and it's all one big collage of your experience. So that's what my goal and aims are. But sometimes the clean lines are beneficial. And I think that's the part that I haven't quite mastered yet.
The clean lines are beneficial, and this is coming from someone who loves efficiencies and like things to run smoothly.
I already
right?
know.
But also, I think people like you and me, the way we work is that our careers are our life. And for someone who loves you and is really thrilled about your success, and I love watching it, my biggest concern with that is that I remember you and I had a conversation and you had said, and I'm sorry if I put you on blast, but you had said you don't really have a lot of non-work friends.
Yeah.
That makes me sad for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I
so
hear you.
I want to always try to be that non-work friend, even though we met in work.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to have the balance, but also sometimes to be like no. The other day you said you're with the family, you're going on vacation. I was like, that's great. You need to do that. And you need to do that more. And also, I know that a lot of the things that you come across are things that just drop in your lap. And then they're huge, right? You get a random phone call and then suddenly you're on this journey. And it's great that you follow that journey. But I just want to say to you, always remember that's work.
Yeah, I think that it probably goes back to the fact that I moved around a lot when I was a kid and stuff, and I would never be in a place long enough to have any kind of seriously lasting relationships. But the ones that would last, let's say, and when I say they would last, it's not like I would speak to that person every day after I moved from that area or whatever. But if I saw them today, it would be like no time has passed.
So they're real relationships.
The real relationships, and I think the reason for that though is because of the like high pressure microcosm experiences that I've gone through with those people. And I know this for fact is you are one of the people who I've been through in a condensed time frame, albeit that was 4.5 years or 5 years or whatever it was, relatively condensed time frame in terms of like lifelong friends.
A lot happened.
So much happened in such a condensed period of time that it's impossible because of the shared experience
to not stay connected.
In some ways more than members of my family. You know what I mean? So I think that's more, when I said I don't have any like long-term friends, what I mean more so than that is I think any friends who I have that are still around from any point in my life, it's been only through these kind of pretty intense shared experiences that I have them around. But I think that because I have a disproportionately more amount of ex-colleagues or friends or people I went to school with or whatever, who I have that kind of relationship with, than anybody else. Most people typically will have some people that they went to school with, some people who lived around the area, some friends who are
from college,
some family members who are more friends than family members, if you like, and then people they work with, or some cocktail of that. And whereas mine is much more, there's family at home, and then it's pretty much people I worked with.
And some of them have just become friends.
And some of them, because of that, like 10-year experience condensed into 4 years, we just become closer friends. And my expectation is always, it's going to be like that with everyone. And that's also the wrong expectation, because there's people like you who keep me in check and let me know, listen, it ain't going to be like that next time I see you, if I see you, because I've had enough.
And also that's the nature of people, right? Relationships require
you need to be held to account.
In some form or fashion. You don't have friends to get things from them, but you do have friends to have a two-way relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, we got real deep real quick. But this is what happens when we don't see each other.
Yep.
You said that you wanted to be an archaeologist.
Yeah, when I was like a kid, I just was dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece. I was just fascinated by history like that. You know what I mean?
An archaeologist is a pretty cool profession. But then you decided music, and it's always been music, and you figured out how to integrate music into your career, which
Yeah.
is beautiful. But what happened to make you decide scrap archaeology, it's music?
I was thinking about this the other day actually because, again, same reasons around like the blurring the lines between hobbies and work or whatever. And I was trying to philosophize a bit about what is it that makes us like the things we like and want to do the things we do. Obviously, you're a kid, so you don't really know, but I can only ever equate it to the things that I was doing, consuming, whatever. There's a physical action of my mum's put the TV on for me, or my dad's put the radio on for me so he can do something else
keep
and
you occupied.
keep me occupied, or here's a video game or whatever. And those things end up shaping you because that's what you spend time with. And music was just one of those things. Even if it wasn't to distract me, there was always music playing in my house, and it's a variety of stuff, everything from Bollywood music to Qawwali music to me putting the radio on, listening to Capital FM or whatever Radio 1. So that's where I think the music thing came from, because I just started to like really be drawn to it, and we all generally in the family have a strong passion for music consumption. Like I wouldn't say that there's any people who are like big musicians.
So your
in the
music
family.
house.
Yeah, a musical home. But then the other stuff, like whether it's archaeology or technology later on, or all these the other avenues, I think that was more of the other thing that I think we all do. So one is consume, but the other one is like envision. As people, we live in a fantasy one way or another of what would it be like if, right? It's not that you're sat there fantasizing all the time, but certainly
Use your imagination.
you put yourself into different scenarios and positions. And I think when we were kids, probably we do that more than at any other period in our lives. So I was just fascinated by the stories, like of it's not really it's a history, not really fictional, but these are real stories that are as close to fiction as can be possible. Quite fascinating. And then it's, hold on, I can go to these places, I can go to Egypt and still see the remnants of this. You can walk the streets of Rome and still see all of these things. That I think just fascinated me. Then going to the museums. It got to a point when I was in my teens now, doing GCSEs and A levels, where I still had both fascinations. I wouldn't say I wanted to be an archaeologist at that point. I used to get pretty bored in school, so I'd like bunk off college or not go to a certain class if it was maths or whatever, and I'd just jump on the train. But I wouldn't be like, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but I wouldn't be out like being on the corner like smoking a joint or whatever. I would literally go to the Natural History Museum, walk around on my own and read and actually just absorb, and then go to the Royal Festival Hall on South Bank and just sit at the matinee show, because it'd be like £6 or whatever pocket money to go and do that. Then wander around South Bank, take the train home. Like that would be my day out. So it'd be really a mishmash of those cultural experiences.
So you grew up in a house where there was always music, archaeology, and observation and people. How does that connect to how you work now?
I feel like there was always an awareness of all the things I love and all the things I want to be engaged with, and those things would be quite vast and wide. There was never really any restriction put on that, at least in terms of, there was when it came to get serious and do work and whatever, but when it came to like my free time, I was constantly hopping between, like any kid, right, watching wrestling on TV and then playing Sonic the Hedgehog and then listening to the radio. But I think there's definitely something to be said for, maybe there's a bit more of a addictive or obsessive gene in my family without going into it, and I think I probably inherited that to some degree, and I would just go deeper than maybe anybody else would.
You like rabbit holes?
Yeah, I really like rabbit holes, and so you can imagine what happened when YouTube came about. But basically, I think how it impacts my job or my career since then or now, I still see, like I say, remnants of that, because I definitely enjoy the sparseness of any thing that I'm doing. You read that list, it shouldn't be the same person from the way that most people think, right? You just listed things that 7 or 8 different people have done over the course of the year, but in my mind, like all of those things, I can't maybe sit still and just have one slice of the pie. It feels like I need to have a bite of all of it. My sister actually does this when we order food.
She wants
she
a
has
little
to
piece of
taste.
everything.
She has to taste a bit of everything. It's almost like food
Interesting.
FOMO. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Speaking
yeah,
of FOMO, though, do you think
yeah.
that you say yes to so many things because there's a part of that FOMO exists, the fear of missing out on something?
I definitely think there's an element of that, but I don't think it's FOMO because somebody else is doing it instead of me or whatever. I think it's more, again, growing up, like a lot of people, fairly modest. We didn't have much and moved around a lot. And that meant that also these kinds of opportunities are not even like scarce. They're unfathomable, right? Like you don't expect to ever be in the situation to be turning down any one of those things that you mentioned.
I don't think anyone would, but I'm just curious because you say yes a lot.
I say yes a lot. I would go as far as saying I have a problem saying no, which I'm getting better at, I think.
Good.
But I think that, yeah, I say my default position is I'll give it a try. Why not? You know what I mean? So, yeah, so I think that's definitely helped. But I definitely feel like, yeah, the FOMO thing is more like, again, envisioning what that thing could become.
Yeah.
And then having the FOMO of, do I really want to miss out on that opportunity?
So the opportunity to make cool shit
Yeah.
is really the thing. It's not really fear of missing out. It's just that why would you say no
Yeah.
to being able to make cool shit?
Especially, like I say, when those opportunities, like you felt the scarceness of those opportunities.
Yeah.
So at that point, this is the thing you asked for. What do you mean you're going to say no?
True.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this is the thing that you asked for. How does Manon get to the point where Idris Elba, will.i.am, some of the biggest technologists in the world, you're in their contacts and you're one phone call away? How did Manon get to that point?
It's a whole series of events, and like I always say, you can only connect the dots backwards. And to be honest, I think if I was to try and highlight one really pivotal moment in my career, it would probably be making the decision to move away from the UK and go to Berlin.
Work with native
instruments. Yeah. So how that all happened was basically I went to school. You know, I was not really particularly skilled at music or anything. Like I was just super interested in it and wanted to do it. And at that time, it was still early days of like computer music, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So it was like you'd be learning a bit of that in school, but nothing really clicked for me. I couldn't play an instrument. I tried to play guitar, wasn't really great at it, but I just had this real keen interest in it. But the things that I was good at were English, literature and language, like business, anything computer related, software engineering, IT. And so I decided, really basically my parents told me like, yeah, you're going to be doing this.
Because that's what parents do.
Yeah. And even though I tried to find a course called sound engineering, I remember out of A levels, I tried to say, oh yeah, I'm going to go and do this sound engineering course. It's got engineering in the title. So it's going to be fine. Yeah. My dad was just like, okay, then here's a guitar. You can busk in the street. And if you're able to pay rent, then you can make your own choices. Otherwise, yeah, you're doing software engineering or maths. And I'm like, I was already failing at maths. He just didn't know at that point. So I did software engineering at Kingston Uni. But whilst at uni, I was producing tracks in my bedroom, like trying to get
What was your first production software that you used?
FL Studio, Fruity Loops. And so I illegally downloaded it. I probably genuinely didn't start paying for it until I was at Rowley when we got handed a few free licenses.
And then you weren't paying for it because we got free license.
It was like one of them where it was like I just had everything working perfectly after like hours and hours of whatever. Anyway, the point is I got okay at it at uni. And I really mean okay, like I was not good. But I was making some tracks, and then it was MySpace days. I uploaded a bunch of those on MySpace. A couple of different artists would get in touch and like record on my beats. And then one lady out in Australia, her name's Chanel, she got signed off the back of a bunch of demos I had produced with a friend of mine, Messiah, who I was working with at the time. And she got signed, and she literally got plucked out of Perth, Australia, and moved to New York. Now suddenly signed to Virgin Music, right? So I was at the end of my academic year, and I just basically thought, I got to be out there and see what's going. Like I got to take this as an opportunity for myself. Got on a plane with whatever money I had left from the student loan, because I didn't drink at the time, or like, it was just,
That's where you save money, the not drinking part.
not
honestly.
going out. Like I was just in my room doing music really, and doing my degree. And so I went out there towards the back end of the academic year, basically sat there in New York until I was invited to the studio. And she was like, she'd have me around. Messiah came with me as well. He's from Tottenham. We went out there, and what ended up happening was that like one of my songs got picked for like the Japanese bonus track on her album.
The most obscure.
Yeah, like
yeah.
the most random. It was like almost like a pity vote. Like this
Yeah.
kid's flown out here, just give him the track. But what ended up happening with that was that set off a chain of events that over the next 18 months or so, I needed to get a lawyer, and so I was introduced to some lawyer. That lawyer was just doing their mate a favor because he dealt more with like TV and film scores, which I wasn't doing. He then heard some of my music and then got some of my music placed in a TV show called Heroes at the time on NBC.
Heroes was good.
Yeah, it was a great show. And then that's, it became such a hit show. No one knew it was going to do that. I started getting opportunities off the back of that. All of that was basically wiped clean. The reason I mention all that is because it was all wiped clean in 2007, 2008, during the writer's strike. So there was no work anymore. And I didn't really have any inroads in the music industry beyond what had happened to me in America. I'd come back thinking, it's just a matter of time. Like, I've made it now.
Heroes.
yeah. Like,
They're actually doing a remake of that, I think.
They are, yeah. Tim Kring. And I actually...
If you tell me Tim Kring is on your phone...
He's on my phone, and the way I'd never met him during that entire period, and I only met him because of Mind Valley less than a year ago at a random dinner.
Did you tell him this story?
Yeah, Vishen, the CEO of Mind Valley, literally filmed my face when he told me that Tim Kring was coming to dinner, and it was like Tim Kring and Billy Zane. But then I'm like,
that's so random.
I know, it was really random. A lot of people would be excited about Billy Zane, but like I was like, Tim Kring, are you sure he's coming to? And yeah, I ended up hanging out with him, and we had a good, cool reunion. But the point being, I came back, and essentially, all the work had dried up. They went from 20 odd episodes, if you remember, per season of different shows, to having what we have now, 8 to 12 episodes. And there was no WeTransfer. It was like, listen, unless you're gonna find a way to be out here, like,
it ain't happening.
Good luck. And I had no relationships in the UK. In the UK, I had no relationships in music.
Right.
So I'm back in the UK, don't have a music career, and basically just have a degree. So I'm like, okay, I need to get a real job. Like, we're still living in, right until 2018, we were living in the council flat in North London. At this point, it's like 10 years prior to that. I'm like, I better get my stuff together. So I end up getting a job in ad tech, in performance marketing, like behavioral retargeting, marketing tech, basically. Entry level. I started in technical services, technical support, then started QA and product management. But that journey of 5 years in that industry was a gift and a curse. The whole time, all I could think of was how have I gone from earning a certain amount of money per
Having
episode,
tracks on one of the biggest shows on
right?
TV.
And meeting the likes of will.i.am, albeit in passing and stuff like that at the time, to essentially desk job in Aldgate on the Metropolitan line, working with really cool people, like folks who really helped me in my career, but nonetheless, like being not really a part of anything that I was passionate about. And then the EU cookie law hit in like 2012 or whatever. I was at a company called Skimlinks, and it all got a little bit slimy in that industry. And at the time, I just thought to myself, oh, this is so dead. I need to do something with my career. And I got retargeted by an ad, the same technology we were building, on Facebook at the time for Native Instruments, a product manager role. And I was like, this is the marriage of, hold on a minute, are you telling me that everything I've been doing in product, like I just pivoted to a product career, and I was thinking, yeah, this is much more like it. It's not quite engineering, so I don't have to worry about being a crap engineer, but can be creative. And then all of a sudden, the realization that, hold on, the software that I use to make music, the hardware that I use to make music is actually built by people like me. And I had to take a massive pay cut. Everyone in my family was against it, but I ended up just moving to Berlin. And I think if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have had that platform to then meet you, work at Rowley, do all these stuff we did with the likes of Apple and others, and then re-meet will.i.am in the second or third year of my time at Rowley, because we were demoing in the Seaboard. And then that's how the reconnection happened. But at this point now, there's a really long-winded way of answering a question, but like at this point, now the dots connect. Now to will.i.am, I'm not some average, and frankly average musician who like sling me some beats or hit me with an email and like, I'll listen to it or whatever. It's gone from that to, hold on, okay, so you make music, you make the devices and software that I use to make music, and you have a background in engineering and design. Oh, I'm into that stuff too.
Exactly.
Let's connect. And I think that's why I think I now unashamedly say just make cool shit. I just do it all. And I think a lot of those people that you mentioned, the reason it's those people and not like, I don't know, 5 other various names or celebrities is because they genuinely do the same thing. They're cut from the same cloth in some ways, albeit a much more refined, better off, more successful cloth than
Oh,
mine.
no, I think you could be considered pretty successful. Okay, so you took us on, as you said, a long-winded journey, but it all makes sense and it connects everything. But you have held certain roles: product manager, chief product officer, creative director. What do each of those things actually do?
I think the interesting thing here is that I basically seem to only occupy roles that people don't understand.
Yeah. And I would like you to explain what you've done in each of those roles, because there's probably someone else out there
Yeah.
who is in a similar space like you and is trying to figure out, because
Yeah.
the world doesn't give them examples
Yeah.
of what it could be and how it could be.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of those roles, and actually most roles, right? Which is, I get it's arguable that's the case. An example would be a nurse or a lawyer or whatever. You have to do what it says on the tin. But I think for most other, let's call them more kind of corporate centric roles or startup roles, I think like the malleability of these roles is important. The spectrum that these roles can sit on is important. Generally speaking, I think everyone would agree that, okay, if you have a software engineer can be skilled in multiple different technologies or languages. But even if you say, let's say, take one of the guys that we worked with who is a C+ engineer, in the spectrum of C++ engineers, we had people like Jules or Fabian who are like God mode.
Yeah.
They have their own languages.
Making their own languages.
They've
Yeah.
got all
creating
kind,
their
they're
own.
like serious hardcore engineering heads. And then you have someone like Felix, who we worked with,
Yeah.
who is far more on the creative end of the spectrum, but still equally, I would say, can speak the same
Can
language,
speak the same
right?
language, yeah. Can
as a Jules. Now, so for those who don't know those people, ultimately what we're saying is one extremely technical software engineer, somebody a lot more creative who's all about, they might not have the cleanest code or the whatever, but it's all about what they're making and the creativity.
They can marry the creative and the technical.
Now, it's needs must, right? Like whatever you need for the job is what you decide to go and hire. And in my mind, like I always sat on that spectrum, whether it's technical to creative or commercially savvy to creative, I always sat slightly on the creative end. So when it comes to product management, going back to your question, I think product managers largely in the technology world are people who represent the interests of the customer, the end user, and the business. So they wear that kind of commercial and user-centric hat, but ultimately have enough understanding or knowledge of the technology and maybe some deep enough understanding of the design side, even if it's light touch, who can help solve problems for the business or for the end user. Meaning they are able to prioritize which problems to solve and perhaps solutions that they can try to help solve those problems. They tend to also work really closely with the engineering team to deliver on that.
Yeah.
Whether it's bi-weekly or monthly or quarterly or whatever. So they essentially are what you might describe as a project manager, but with a bit more, what I would describe as a bit more responsibility on the actual outcome of what is delivered.
Or even a project manager who possibly has an understanding of a greater design and technology understanding in a way.
They might have great design and technology understanding, but I think the fundamental difference between that and a project manager is that like you can be judged by the success or failure of your in my estimation, right? And then with the creative director, I think I see it as not dissimilar. And I think this is why I'm able to straddle some of these roles, is because again, some people see creative direction as like art direction, even as far
this
as
is the color palette,
the far
this
end
is
is
the
art
feel.
direction. And some people see creative direction as the storytelling. And some people see it as the kind of combination of, for example, in some of the work that I do with Framestore in the immersive team, it's the combination of technology and storytelling and how somebody experiences that, i.e. the end user. So I'm actually specifically in the immersive team at Framestore. I know nothing about VFX.
What does the immersive team do?
I didn't even know this about Framestore until I first went there and I was invited to do a talk there to the creative director group. And I assumed that they were essentially all working on Marvel movies or whatever, you know what I mean? And a lot of them were. But for example, Framestore actually has a division called Rides, which is the sister team to Immersive. and rides, they literally make the theme park rides.
No way.
Yeah, at Universal and all these other places. So you go and watch the Marvel film, they're actually making the
Theme
ride
park ride.
crazy cool. Yeah, it's like the people who work in that team are like so imaginative, though
Yeah.
crazy. So I'm like, hold on a minute, what? So you guys do the VFX and then you're actually designing the theme park ride? Like, this is
It's
insane.
truly end to end, isn't it?
Yeah. And so then immersive was, and I think my friend Carl, who runs that team, is probably the right person to describe this properly. But as far as I understand it, was born out of the advertising element of what they do. Because not only do they do VFX for films, but they've developed a lot of the VFX centric ad campaigns that you might have seen. These are like immersive kind of experiences. This
So like different activations.
activations happens in retail stores.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I've done either through them or in collaboration with them or since I met them, worked with people like Christian Dior. So that there's a walkthrough installation in Paris, which is celebrating 75 years of Dior, and that's projection mapping and VR and all that AR and all that stuff. And so that's what the immersive team does. Pretty fun stuff. Honestly, I'm like still a
Yeah.
bit fascinated that
And
get to do it.
what about the chief product officer?
So I think the chief product officer role is essentially like an elevated version of the product manager role. But the unique thing about Mind Valley and what I've benefited from, I think, is the fact that they've massively embraced the whole kind of creative aspect of what I like to do and afforded me the luxury of exploring areas that I didn't know I might be capable of.
Yeah.
So Mind Valley, for those who don't know, is like a personal growth transformation kind of platform, a bit like Masterclass, or they often get compared to Masterclass, Calm, Headspace, because they have some mindfulness stuff as well. But it's quite an interesting place in that they care about 6 different aspects, categories of your life, for everything from mind, body, spirit, as you'd expect, to entrepreneurial kind of pursuits or leadership or parenting or relationships. So it's really like they have a bit of something for everyone. And if you, like most people do, go from having a problem in, let's say, an interpersonal relationship, solving that problem through one of these platforms or whatever, you normally say, all right, cool, that was actually super helpful, or I went to speak to someone, a psychiatrist or whatever. And then another problem pops up in terms of like your career trajectory.
Yeah.
You've spent so much time focusing on this. You normally go to a different platform or a different person. So they have a lot of that content in one place. And that seemed like an interesting challenge to me.
I think that's quite a challenge because I'm already like a little bit skeptical of it.
Is there too much? Yeah. Is there too much in one place? So that's what the challenge I saw. We're talking about a platform with over 2 million subscribers and a lot of active users. And you saw what we did with Apple, and recently we did a collaboration with Microsoft. So I think it's an area that people, more and more so as people start to become a bit more aware of this whole work-life balance concept,
or more that we need to integrate them healthily.
I think that at least my foresight in trying to join them was like, yeah, I think there's a space for that. As chief product officer, it's not just the technology teams and stuff that I get to work with. In a very unique set of circumstances, I actually like directly manage and work with the creative team. The films team are under me, so I work with them on the actual product, which is the content. And again, that's not something I had any experience doing prior to doing this, but I think I have a different perspective to the problem that they're facing or the set of solutions they're trying to design. Yeah, it's fun. It's crazy.
Okay, right now you are a chief product officer, you are a creative director, you are also a music producer because, oh my God, dude, because I hadn't seen you because I just know what your life is because of your posts. But the Olympic song.
Yeah.
Team Refugee. For the refugee team, right?
Yeah. Me and Shay did it. Honestly, what an opportunity.
Beautiful.
By the way, that came from Framestore.
Ah.
Yeah, so Framestore were already working on, I don't know if you saw the ad, the clip.
I did.
But it's all, the truth is that entire clip is AI generated or AI skinned, let's call it. As
That's
in,
scary.
we actually shot it. So it's the real athletes. We shot the whole thing. When I say we, I mean Framestore. Will, who's an award-winning director who directed it, was, by the time I got into the project, he had already shot everything. And the idea was, what could be more perfect, right? It's the combination of technology, creative, sports, branding, and ultimately music on my side. But the idea was to basically say, what about if we trained an AI engine on the illustrations of an actual refugee artist, which is who is NG. She's a refugee who works at Framestore in an unrelated team. She's actually not on any kind of art or illustrative team, but she just happens to be a skilled illustrator.
Wow.
Yeah. And she kindly gave us a bunch of her illustrations of the athletes to then train an AI to then essentially take the raw footage, animate,
And put the
over
illustrator's skin on it.
basically, illustrate the shots that we needed, and including the backgrounds and all that other stuff. I got brought in to then help try and figure out what does this sound like, what would be like the perfect music for it. I reached out to Shay obviously immediately, and I also reached out to Wyclef Jean from the Fugees, and I'm thinking, what better person
I mean,
to
it's
get
in
on
the
the
name,
Team
right?
Refugee, 100%. And he was so up for it, and he was actually super gracious and gave me a bunch of time. And that version, the version you heard, that instrumental went to him and Shay first, and he gave it his blessing, and he was ready to. He came to London. He was ready to record on it, and then there was this whole crisis in Haiti that he had to get back home, make sure his family and stuff were cool. So unfortunately, he didn't end up working on the song.
On the actual track.
But to have gone back and forth with him on it, get it screened by him, approved by him, then work with Shay to get it over the line when Shay did a killer job.
As always.
It was amazing. And now the fact that to say that a team that basically has had no real identity in terms of a sports team.
Have a whole theme song
They
now.
got a theme song. They got the Nike have done the kit design and have put out their own
So
campaign.
now they've basically got their superhero clip sorted.
Yes, done. So the goal is hey, look, I think the refugee team should be everyone's second team. Everyone's got their country and nation that they support.
So we went through all the things that you do. We went through how everything kind of connects. Is there anything in particular that you just really love about what you do, that if you couldn't do it anymore, you'd be like, nah, pivot, pack it up, I'm going to go farm?
I don't know if I could ever go farm. We live on a farm now, by the way. But yeah.
That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah. Not tempted at all. I mean, look, I think, I know it sounds cliche now that we've said it a bunch of times, but I think making cool shit is literally the fun part of it. And I think the process of making, and collaboratively, right? Like, I enjoy genuinely, like, feeling super powered by people who are experts at what they do and bouncing around those ideas and getting the creative juices flowing. I think that process is really what I enjoy. So I think, again, it's not to call out any other profession, but I do look at some of my friends and family who have the more, let's call it, traditional professions. And I just think to myself, like, oh man, if I had to really just do that every day. And by the way, I do a lot of the same stuff every day, but I just do it, I think,
always in a different
context.
Different context, permutation, different people in and out. That's another one of the reasons why I decided I need to not go work for someone and build my own thing.
Amen. Yeah.
The repetition that my life would become, I was like, nah, it's soul sucking.
Yeah.
You now work at the forefront of technology. AI is now mainstream. It's in the public domain. We know it's been around forever, but it's everyday lingo now. What are your thoughts on how AI is going to affect particularly your space as a creative technologist? There's no longer a distinction between creative and technology, in my opinion. I think they now are hand in hand all the time.
Yeah.
Because technology is just part of who we are. And so now the thing that distinguishes it is the creativity of the use of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think AI is going to impact
I mean, I think
that space?
I think you said it. I think, excuse me. I think finally, in my opinion, there is a weighting that's emerging on like the creative end of the spectrum, where people are valuing now people are worried about the fact that AI can just make or do all of the stuff that we can do. But I think that the unique part is the human imagination piece, and I think the human creativity piece. So the fact that we are erring on the side of the most important skill is creativity, and maybe some people wouldn't go as far as saying that, but I think if you could say that what is being valued literally in terms of a monetary value, let's say prompt engineers,
Which is now a job.
and I think just under a year ago there was famously that article about Meta are hiring for prompt engineers starting at 300 grand. When you take that, look, prompt engineering, as on the surface it does, and I can excuse anyone, and myself included, for thinking that's a joke of a job. Like, you can't be serious. If you can speak English, then you get 300 grand. Like, that's basically how it reads. As time's passed, and when I say time, I mean like 6 months. But as time has passed in the world of AI, I think what people are starting to realize now, it's about what you put in, is what you get out.
And the more specific, unique, and everything that you can put in is
Yeah, absolutely. So I think to answer your question, I feel like we've come from an era of real technical hard skills
Hmm.
balanced with some soft skills being the most valuable commodity, from an era of people saying,
You want to be a software engineer.
yeah, you want to be a software engineer. Listen, you want to speak Mandarin,
Yep.
Japanese,
Yep.
English, and C++, Java, whatever it is, right? Python.
If you want to survive,
If you want to survive, like if you want to have a job
build a
tomorrow.
website, blah blah blah.
But now I think it's like skills are cute, but it's imagination is everything, right? Like,
Yeah,
and that's,
because we've gotten to the point where I think you and I thrive, which is that the machines are there to do the heavy work. We are here to, as you using your terminology of skin, we are here to add that sparkle, that uniqueness, that shine.
yeah. It's again, it's just everything is on the power of your imagination. If you can think, and it sounds again very cliche, but it's actually quite literally true now for some corners of creativity. If you can think it, you can make it. It's not manifestation. It's literally you can do it with a few keyboard strokes.
Yeah.
And that becomes, of course, scary for a heck of a lot of people. But in my opinion, it's super exciting because you have to have the optimist view. There are a whole bunch of conversations we can have about what if some kid is trying to build a bomb. But I think, honestly, like the net outcome, I think, will be more people focused on generating the ideas, solving the problems through creativity, and generally speaking, more often than not, these technologies assisting in actually test driving those things or creating those things. So yeah, I think that's where it's headed, across the board, pretty much. And I'm an early adopter. You're speaking to the wrong person if you're looking for like the
someone to give an anti-point.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you don't like about it?
I think all the same stuff that's been spoken about. I think there are biases baked in.
But it's a reflection of the world.
Yeah.
So.
But you know that I've been working in roles where we've been doing machine learning for a long time. Almost, I actually found a video of me giving a talk 10 years ago, quite literally, about machine learning. And even then, the big conversation around it was, how do you avoid biases? What can you bake in to avoid biases? If you're baking stuff in, doesn't that mean that you're conflicting with so there's all of these like ethics issues. And what I don't like about that is that A, we don't know the answer, of course, that's worrying. But B, I also don't like that we're so focused on it, to be honest. Like, because I also think that anything that has been truly disruptive and shaped us as a species has been something that's just appeared and we've had to tackle. Nobody had like due diligence on on a bunch of these things.
That's
you know what
also,
I mean?
but and I hear you on that point, but I think I kind of disagree.
Yeah.
No, not I do disagree.
Yeah.
Because the reality is we have to learn from our history.
True.
And we did not pay attention to social media. And now it's a significant problem. Like, mental health for young kids and social media is problematic. We didn't think about that. We didn't consider the impact of disinformation. We didn't consider all the things that now, the amount of work we have to do to unpick it. So I think we do need to be very cautious about it. I'm all about engaging with it for sure, but we have to pay attention to it and we have to be on the front end of, in a way, better safe than sorry. And then once we have, and there's probably the operator brain in me as well, it's like, you have to have that solid foundation that you can build off of, and you can always open the box a little bit.
Yeah, my thing is,
you can't close the box once it's open.
But my thing is that like that is, in my opinion, that is an issue of there not being guardrails.
Yeah.
So it's, yes, we can design those guardrails based on hindsight for something like social media, but then social media doesn't exist if it's not for the internet. When the internet comes about, you're in the same position again. And probably there's, for those of us who are old enough, you might be complaining about a bunch of stuff wrong with the internet, let alone social media. Like, all of a sudden, access to a bunch of stuff that you shouldn't have access to.
Porn.
But,
honestly, that was a big thing when the internet came about. Before you had to go to the store.
IP issues with
security,
with music
access,
and film and all. So we could, and before that, it's like the print press, same thing. Oh, it depends who's printing. Like, that person determines what the narrative is. So I think the lesson is actually almost always the same. If it hasn't got any guardrails on it, you can expect the Wild West, and then as things emerge that you don't like as a society, you're going to interject and fix those things. I think that generally speaking, that process tends to shake out where we make the right decision ultimately. Now, you don't want a nuke to be fired off in the midst of all of that.
Funnily
But
enough, I don't think AI would be the cause of that.
this is what I'm saying. I don't think that this technology, again, like there's people who are way more in the know and way more involved than I am who say the opposite of what I'm saying. But I think, again, the optimist's view is collectively as a society, I think that we'll be like, hold up, don't do that. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where the EU cookie law came from. Because what you're complaining about with social media started off as advertising tech. Literally, I worked on it with a bunch of people. And once that started to be like, hold on a minute, why am I seeing the very ad for the very product that I was just discussing with Zara on the podcast? That was cookies, right? And that was just a free-for-all technology.
Yeah, but I do think, like, I just, my biggest concern with that is that we'll be too late. And we've seen it happen enough times to know that we have to get those guardrails in before. And you can loosen it. I'm on the opposite side for sure, where we can loosen it after a while, but we have to start with strong and strict parameters, because human beings, and you know what it is, especially because all of the technologies before that you just discussed, the printing press and then internet coming in and then into social media and IP and all of those becoming a problem. It's because we've existed in all of those that now the adoption rate and the way things are going to move with AI is going to be so much faster that we will not catch up.
Yeah, but let me tell you though,
if we don't get in front now.
All of those things
already out there.
Well, and they were all entirely centered around the human beings being the problem, and the technology just does what the technology does.
Without us is totally fine.
Yeah.
We are definitely the problem, which is why all the more reason why I think we need to have really strict guardrails in place, because we are the most, what's the word I'm looking for? We are the most variable.
They're volatile.
Well, volatile, thank you. We are the biggest point of failure here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we are beautiful and amazing and brilliant and stunning, but we're also really fucked up.
I think generally there is a middle ground, and that is that the technology is not the problem.
No.
So we have to stop trying to like restrict access to the technology and all this other stuff. I think what we need to do, you're right, is put the right guardrails in place. The truth is, though, we get back to problem number one, which is humans are the one building the guardrails. So it's one rule for one group of people and another rule for a different group of people.
Biases exist everywhere.
Do you know what I'm saying? So ultimately that's what it comes down to. And for that reason, I'd rather have access than not have access.
Yeah.
Because then you don't know who you're restricting. Like at the end of the day, like you're talking about a time now where kids who were in different locations but having a similar experience, meaning lesser access to certain things than others, like would just not have access, because ultimately there's a price on it. There's a minimum requirement to access that thing. Let's roll out in the US and Europe first and then roll out to Africa and Asia. Like there's all that kind of stuff. In my opinion, is that we have this opportunity to have, it's basically what the internet was, knowledge like shared super fast at our fingertips. And now we can actually speak to knowledge. Like you can actually speak to the information and have a conversation with it, unbiased conversation with it, theoretically.
Because we know that shit is biased. Wow. Like now my brain is racing on a whole bunch of things, and even though I have my lovely notes, I'm like, I want to close this up. Let's talk a little bit about that interaction between life and work. And we touched on it before. We touched on me jokingly but lovingly calling you a bad friend, and also honestly. But and you even talked about how you friend. Like you have mainly work friends, but those come from experiences. How do you navigate, because you have a family, how do you navigate the fact that you probably spent, how many days, actually, let me pause on that. How many days in the last 2 months do you think you spent here in the UK?
I know I got to give a real answer now.
Yeah, you do. I think I have an idea.
Why you got to do me like that, man?
Because of me. Let's just use May, not even 2 months. Just in this month, how many days do you think you've been here?
I have actually, I've been on 2 trips this month, both to Italy randomly. And so I think I have probably been here 18 to 20 days this month.
That's a good month.
You're taking the mic.
No, I thought it was way less. That's a good
yeah,
month. That's
It's
basically 4 working weeks.
ain't gonna be like that in June.
That's a good month. Okay.
Yeah.
But you work on all these different things. You are actually connected to multiple organizations. Location-wise, how do you make it all connect? How do you make it work?
Yeah, right now, look, okay, admittedly, right now it's very crazy because I'm actually, the 2 or 3 things that are taking the chunk of my time, one of them is based in Asia, Far East Asia, Malaysia, which is Mind Valley. And then a bunch of the other things are based out on West Coast
So you're
in LA.
literally on both extreme ends of the time zones. What is the whole thing called?
The time zones.
But isn't there a word for what the time zones are?
Probably not the one that that's coming to me. Yeah. But yeah, I'm on both ends of that. Yeah,
and we're in the middle in GMT.
And we're in the middle, which is actually not a bad thing. This is what I mean. Like, actually, the best time zone for the situation I find myself in. But yeah, so that is hard. So my days typically go like, I could be on calls as early as 6:30 a.m. with Asia. I typically punch through to around lunchtime in the UK.
And then you switch over to the next time zone.
Yeah, then I actually, interestingly, have a pocket of time where I get to actually do the work. Because if you're just speaking on the phone all the time, you know how it goes. So I actually have 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the day where I'm actually like, oh, okay, crap, I need to get all this stuff done, actually. And then come around 3 or 4 o'clock is when typically actually it starts from New York and then West Coast switches on. And it also happens to coincide with the time that my kids get home from nursery and my wife gets home from work. That's always a tricky juncture because I have to. I want to actually spend as much time with them as possible, especially before they sleep. So I try and make it work, but it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard.
How do you take care of yourself, my friend? How is your health?
My physical health, who knows? Because hey, doctor's never seen me. But no, but I have to go and I need to go and do some.
Go get your prostate checked.
I gotta do some proper checkups. Let's put it that way. But
you're not getting any younger.
No, I think generally speaking, I think fatigue is probably the one big threat. I've started to feel that more so than ever in recent months. But generally speaking, because I feel like I'm just honestly happy in the work I'm doing. And I think that does a lot, I think, for your overall morale, well-being, mindset.
It does.
So I actually feel excited. I feel good. But I am constantly reminded of and regularly thinking about my wider health. And I think that's basically the newest side hustle, which needs to be the main hustle.
Yeah. Especially for the kiddos. I'm looking at you. And it's so wild. I see your son. I don't think I've seen you and him before.
Yeah.
But while we're talking, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's being amazing. It's crazy because my daughter looks a lot like my wife now. She's starting to look more and more like her. And yeah, my uncle said to me the other day, you got like some kind of shrink ray or something. What's going on? Like, these guys are dead ringers for you. It's awesome.
It's also the eyes. You both have the same eyes.
Yeah. So we're like in general we're doing good. Look, I think it will get to a point. My son actually goes to, believe it or not, my son goes to school in September. But what's scary about that is you'll actually get fined for breaking a schedule. So that means
you can't just pluck him away.
Nah. So you can, but I need to be on a whole different tier.
No, this is good. Yeah. This is good because it's going to enforce certain management tools that you need to engage with.
There's no getting around the fact that it's a new reality.
Yeah.
So I'm nervous about it. But I am also quite excited about it.
Yeah,
I feel like it's a new chapter, new format, and I don't like staying in one state for too long. So yeah, I'm not mad at that.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm happy to hear that. When I sent you these pre-interviews and I asked about how do you stay sane, most folks have written, I exercise, I run, I read. You're like, I consume unashamedly.
It's true. It's just true.
Do you think that doing that impacts... What am I trying to say? Why is that your sanity piece?
Do you know what's mad? Is because I can't remember who it was now, but somebody was telling me, I was speaking to a friend not so long ago, we're just catching up randomly on text, and I was like, oh man, I bet this thing I bet that thing was like a bit of an ordeal. He was working on a big deadline at the time, whatever. And I'm like, what are you gonna do now that it's out the way? What are you doing? Going to celebrate, whatever. And he said quite jokingly in typical fashion, he was like, no man, I need to just go and sit and mong out in front of the TV for a while. And I laughed to myself, but at the same time, I just genuinely was like, yeah, actually, to be honest, that is how I relax too. And I say that not quite literally mong out in front of the TV, but going back to what you asked me at the beginning about growing up and archaeology and all that other stuff, this was all food for my creativity, my imagination, all those things. So now if you take that list of stuff that I did in the course of last year and the stuff that I'm working on now, you can naturally imagine that it's to exert that amount of thinking and creativity and collaboration and that energy, to exert that amount daily on what are admittedly 12 to 15 hour days oftentimes, you need to recharge. And I think that when you ask why you consume, I think what I'm doing is I'm recharging. I'm letting new information, new stories, new kind of pieces of content enter what is now more of a vacant. I'm letting my imagination rest and letting somebody else's imagination fuel it. And I think that's how I see it. Like, people do look at it and go like, dude, like, what? You stop looking at a screen and now you want to look at a screen again?
I fully do that as well.
Right?
I am someone who, when I want to break and let my brain rest, I watch TV.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And at any point, if I feel like it makes me think, it's normally me going, oh, what's that piece of music? And then I end up in a rabbit hole hunting down this composer. Or what is that thing that I randomly saw? And then I'm like looking for this shoe. You know me and my shoes. And that's why I wanted to ask, because I know for me, it's the fact that I am not having to engage with it in a professional manner.
Yeah.
I watch the Kardashians wholeheartedly for the simple reason that it's fuck all TV. Like, I'm not gaining anything from this.
Yeah.
And my brain can just pause.
No, and I think that whether you want to do it on that level, and I did the same last night with my wife. I think the night before we watched Monkey Man, the new Dev Patel film, which was like really intense and
loved it.
It was so
saw it in cinema.
Yeah, but
I loved it.
Yeah, it was proper high energy, high octane. And then last night I was just like, I can't be bothered to sit and watch another movie. And I don't really do stuff like that, the Kardashian stuff. But I was flicking through Netflix, and the first thing that popped up was like, was it called Buying London or something like that? Like,
I heard that's not good.
It wasn't good at all. But
not even
it
good,
was
bad.
I don't even know.
Bad.
I don't even know the spectrum of good, bad. I just switched it on, and I'm like, this is actually like just trash TV to the nth degree. I was just like,
it's what you need.
At least,
So can I give you some good trash TV suggestions?
Go on then.
Death in Paradise.
I feel like my sister or my wife might have seen
Best
that. Yeah.
Trash TV. You've got I think they're up to season 12. It's on BBC iPlayer.
Okay.
Can't go wrong. There's a lot of social issues, like the whole white savior complex bullshit. But beyond that, no, because when you see it, you know, it's basically this British white detective comes to this Caribbean island and he's right. Yeah. But when you think about the fact that there's a murder every week on this tiny ass island, you're like, logically this just doesn't even make sense. And the accents are bad. It's good bad TV, right? So like, you know, a lot of the other BBC stuff, which is phenomenal, but that requires a bit of engagement. Death in Paradise.
But that's what, I think the closest thing that I can compare to this, what we do, is, I don't know about many other industries, but I know whenever they talk to sports people, like, a lot of these people, even if they're not watching, if a footballer's not watching football,
he's playing FIFA.
Yeah, he or she either playing FIFA or they're watching some sports.
Yeah.
Or like they're watching the Olympics, or they love American football, or they love basketball, or whatever. And I think that's what it is. I think I spent most of my day creating in one form or another, whether it's music or technology or whatever, some kind of stories, like some kind of connecting the dots on creative narrative. And so now I just need to consume some creative narrative, which I don't need to, as you said, engage with. I don't need to make a decision. Like, it's going to happen to me. I'm gonna experience it, because we have a certain appreciation for that as well. So that if you watch something too deep, you're gonna go all the way in deep. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if you watch something that's not so deep, you can still appreciate the fun of it.
And then there's also sometimes where I'm like, that was really bad continuity. You know what I mean? You're still watching it, but you're watching it with your creative eye, and you're watching it with that lens.
Or music or whatever, yeah.
Oh, so when I work, I have to have TV in the background so I can actually focus on the
same.
work. But I can't have music, because I will be dancing and singing, and it will distract me.
Attention,
but TV, it can be on, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
with your career,
Hmm.
how much of it do you think is gut, brain, and just grit? If you had to siphon out the different percentages.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think a large proportion of it is definitely gut. More so, I think but to be honest, like it's shifted over time. I
Mm.
think I always felt like it was grit because of the fact that I didn't really. I'm not like. I know it sounds like I'm fishing here, but it's not. Genuinely, I think it's fair to say that I'm not like the best at any of the things that I'm doing, right? In terms of that standalone piece. Because you've worked with me, you interviewed me, you've seen me work with others, right? I'm nowhere near the best engineer you
You're an
worked with.
excellent connector.
So maybe there's elements, but none of those are like the hard skills. So if I'm a product manager, it's not like I'm the most commercial product manager you have, or I'm definitely not the most engineering centric commercial product manager or the best designer. Like I'm not those things. So that means I have to work, in my opinion, doubly hard to just try and be an influence in those areas and then connect the dots and justify that. That's how I always felt. As I moved in through my career, and
And
by
that
the way,
was the grit part.
that was the grit part. And when it comes to the brain part, I think it's like quite closely connected to the grit part because, again, it's only through the deficiency in some of those areas. So I can't just say, oh, if I put my head on that, it will get solved. That's not necessarily true on the technical level. So it couldn't be the brain part, but like you say, there's the connecting thing, the connective tissue. I did not realize that the value of that until later. So once I started to realize the value of that, and I started to realize that, oh, cool, even though I'm not necessarily the smartest at this one thing or the most experienced at this one thing, when I'm in the room, I tend to see things a bit differently, or I tend to ask a question that gets somebody like the best engineer in the room or the best designer in the room thinking and then coming up with something better. So that's the brain part, which I think is the skill of, yeah, connecting the dots or whatever it might be, or the people or whatever. And then I think now I feel like I'm spending a lot more time trusting my gut as a result because the brain's doing the thinking, but I think the instinct of I still work really closely with one of our friends, Tien, who's an industrial designer. Tien is by far one of the best industrial designers I've ever
really
worked
is.
with, but I wouldn't dare back in the days when we were working together, I wouldn't dare go to Tien or Hong or Seoul or any of those people and tell them you should do it like this.
Yeah.
That was not me,
Because
right?
they were phenomenal.
They were amazing. So
Oh my
there's no
God, the
way I'm walking
talent.
over there going, oh, do this instead. No chance. But
How do you do that? How did you do that though? Because that would have been part of your gig, right?
yeah,
To shape things. What would be your approach for that?
I think it was more like highlighting what maybe didn't quite feel right about what the current state was, and then offering them the trust of, but I know you got it.
So you would essentially, as you said, give the feel. So you'd be like, when I see this, or this
Yeah.
feels like this, or I'm missing this.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't say, like, why isn't that
I
there?
didn't know. I don't even think I had the vocabulary to do
Right.
that. Like at the time, like I was learning from them many times. So it's more like I knew what I had
So that's the
parallel,
gut, yeah.
parallel comparisons, but I didn't know. But exactly, but that's the gut. But it was definitely a low confidence implementation of that. I felt at the time I was doing more of the connecting thing of what about you know how this device has this thing. What about that?
Right, yeah.
But I think now I feel like I'm more confidently saying to someone like Tien, like, nah, dude, you know what? This ain't it. This ain't it. I feel like we should push a bit further, and I think that there's a better thing around the corner. Or if you try this, and I'm trying to, I think, lean more into my that gut instinct. And I think going back to your previous question about the caliber of some of the folks that I've had the opportunity to work with more recently, they have that in spades when it comes to their profession or their thing that they work on. The validation, frankly, of those people, like seeing the value in what I can contribute in that way, like multiplies the confidence level you have on that. So I think almost in equal parts, everything would be great. But I think at the moment, I would say that I'm starting to learn to lean a bit more on the gut than the other stuff. Yeah.
Is there anything that you don't like about what you do?
I think, yeah, like loads of things, dude.
Like what?
The sheer amount of time that I have to be away from my growing family, I think that's a big part of it. I think how invisible the work actually is. And I mean that not that it's not that I'm looking for kudos for, oh, look how hard you're working. It's more that because people don't really understand necessarily the amount of energy exerted in go.
They just see the end product.
Yeah,
They
there's a
don't
lot of
see the journey.
internal sweat. It's not like you're doing something, you're not on your feet for 20 hours a day like doctors and nurses and a lot of people who have to do those
Yeah.
the
The
hard graft.
thinking part is hard.
It's really actually tiring. And I would say that to this day, you and I, when we worked at Rowley, I still refer to Rowley as one of the places where people don't know what hard work is, except for the 100 and something people that worked at Rowley, right? In my mind, I'm like, that was real.
Wasn't in a healthy way though.
Not necessarily in a healthy way,
but
I'm
we
saying
know,
that was like,
we understand what hard work is.
so I'm often in rooms and I'm like, this ain't hard. Please trust me, this is not difficult like the way that you're making it sound. And again, that's not to say it was a good thing, but having gone through that, I'm now reaching a point through the saturation of all of this work where I'm not like feeling in a negative way like I did at times at Rowley, but I am definitely recognizing that I'm reaching that level of hard work or like blood, sweat and tears or whatever again. And there isn't really 140 odd people or whatever it was at the time to see and appreciate and share that with. It's a very lonely place in some ways. You know
That's
what I mean?
a different perspective.
Yeah. So there's like, it's not like I can just, oh, you want to go to Curio Cabal for 3 hours.
Or just walk around the block.
Yeah. Or what was
Go get
the Fox?
cake.
Was it called the Fox?
The Fox, yeah.
Do you
The
want to go to the
Fox.
Fox? We don't do, I can't just
Bread
like,
and butter.
Yeah. I can't just do the whole like, oh yeah, let's all just,
And have a bit of a bitch and a moan.
yeah,
and prop each other up.
It's hard and it's different because
And start rum club.
yeah, start rum club. You know what I mean? It's leadership, but it's a different kind of leadership. You got to be solo, and I think that's one of the. I would say that's the part that's actually the hardest because I think that and I can only but imagine because I have been exposed to people now like some of the folks you mentioned. If I'm finding that difficult, what must it be like when you get recognized every 3 steps you take? That's a whole
you just don't go
different
outside,
level.
isn't it?
That's a whole different level. It's a whole different level. And not to mention you're employing so many people and things like that. That's the stuff that I think the pressure of that is I'm not like here going, oh, I'm such an amazing entrepreneur and I enjoy the thrill of that. I really don't. Do you know what I mean? Like, I really don't enjoy that part of it. But it's a necessary evil, I think.
So what's Manon going to do next?
I don't know. Like the whole purpose is I don't know. Like I just want to roll with the punches. I do have plans for the remainder of this year, and I think some of the stuff might be out by the time this comes out. But the scholarship I had for Maya with A.R. Rahman, I have the opportunity with my co-founder Ben at Middle Eight, and obviously the work that I've recently done with will.i.am to be able to fund another scholarship this time in the UK. Thank you, with the RNCM, Royal Northern College for Music. We're working on the announcement for that, and that would be epic. Myself and my wife never expected to be able to do that in multiple locations, but now that we know it's possible, my ambition for that is, and I actually researched this, maybe you know better than I do, but because I know you worked in this space a little bit, but from all my research, I couldn't find a scholarship or any kind of charitable offering or gift like that exists on every continent. So my goal is to make,
No, there isn't.
Yeah, my goal is to make make the scholarship available for young women on every continent, maybe apart from Antarctica, because I don't know how that runs.
And I think you should include the Caribbean. It's music, dude. Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? So all I'm looking for, and if anybody's watching this, they should get in touch with like you or me, but I don't have inroads in a lot of the colleges and the universities and schools that specialize in these fields. Obviously, amongst us, we have some friends. In India was relatively easy. The UK became pretty easy thanks to a friend of mine, Lois, who went to this university. But I think
so we need someone in music in the US. I actually do have someone.
There you go. Yeah, so that would be cool. US, Africa. I still want to do Far East because Asia's such a big continent.
And I'm moving back home to the Caribbean, so we got the Caribbean on lock.
There you go. South America, Australia, like anyone who has inroads with the big music schools or colleges, get in touch because, I'm thinking if we can do this every year, it only takes 5 years. That's crazy, right? So
that would be beautiful.
Yeah, so that's one of the big projects I'm working on. Continue to work with a lot of the folks that you mentioned in a more kind of embedded way across multiple projects. And I'm just hoping that I can just keep making cool shit.
Nice. Dude, I think you will always continue making cool shit. Did you ever watch Inside the Actor Studio? Know of the program Inside the Actor Studio?
I know it. I'm trying to think.
James Lipton.
What is that on?
I
Is
don't
it just
know
on
what it's
YouTube or
now.
something?
I think in this country it's on YouTube.
I feel like I've
but
seen
it
a
was
couple
on
of.
PBS, and they always interviewed like
Yes,
actors,
yeah, of
right?
course I've seen it. Yeah, yeah.
So James Lipton always ends every conversation with these 10 questions, and
Oh,
I
what?
have totally
I hate
stolen it
quick
from
fire.
them.
Go on.
You don't even have to make them quickfire because I
Okay.
normally respond and have my own take on it. But that's how we're gonna wrap this up.
Okay, that sounds good.
What's your favorite word?
I mean, that is literally. I'm gonna fail at the speed
There's
test on
no
this.
failure and there's
Um,
no speed. We don't do it on speed.
My favorite word, the one I've been using a lot recently, which is not just because it makes you sound a little bit clever, but it actually I love the sound of it and I love what it means. Is synonymity. Yeah,
Synonymity.
yeah, it means the similar, like the striking similarity between two things.
Why
right?
did that suddenly start coming into your vocabulary?
Because I think it's a beautiful word because you can use it for something which is directly related, like the synonymity between that shoe and a Nike shoe that I saw, or you can use it for things that
Doesn't though, because
that
these are amazing Adidas. Just,
true.
like there's no synonym.
but you can also use it as a juxtaposition, like the synonymity between this conversation and the journey of a young individual going through university or whatever, right?
All right.
Yeah. So I don't know
Okay.
that word. Yeah.
All right, I'll take your deep ass answer. What's your least favorite word?
My least favorite word. I don't think I have a hatred for words like that. I'm a lover, not a
It's
fighter.
not hatred. It's least favorite.
I would say any derogatory term. Yeah, I don't want to.
That's such a cop out, but okay.
No, but I think it's true. It's like it just feels like, why are you saying that, dude? You know what I mean? So yeah, anything which is like hate speech. I think
Okay. What turns you on?
yeah. Opinion. I have to say. I know I don't strike you as that kind of person.
That surprises me.
Yeah, but I mean that's why I think that's why we get along.
Yeah, I am pretty.
And if you and the other people that we get along with
yeah,
don't shy away from opinion.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I think maybe because I would say yeah, for the large part I've always treaded carefully. I hold people who share opinion quite openly in quite high regard. Yeah.
I'm gonna take that as a very underhanded compliment. I'll take that. What turns you off?
I think indecision. Yeah. I think indecision is something that I struggle with.
I feel you on that one.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
I think like a single sound. I don't because this is a bit of a cop out answer, but I think it sounds like such a douchebag saying this. The sound of music.
You do sound like a douchebag.
Yeah. But
okay.
it's
Any specific genre?
I love hip hop, man.
I
Yeah,
know you
like
do.
and hardcore hip hop, like largely East Coast from the mid '90s, like specifically like the sound of hip hop.
That's a phenomenal answer.
Yeah.
And it just took me back to when you did your Mind Valley presentation in Estonia last year, and you did an AI and you used the prompt and created a beat.
Yes, doing that again
Didn't
this
think I
year,
was
by the
watching
way.
it, did you?
No, but it's happening again July. So I'll be
I
there.
will be on the beach, so I'm not watching it,
You're
sorry.
not coming to Tallinn.
No. I mean, if you want to send me a plane ticket, sure.
We'll see what we can cook up.
Sound or noise that you hate?
This is gonna be. I'm gonna get in trouble for this one, but basically, my mum has this way. My mum and dad both have this way of saying my name when they're pissed off and are in another room. And it's you just know from the way that they shout my name, Manon. And it's that sound. I'm like, oh, why me? That's probably the sound that I hate.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I'm going to get that in a couple of weeks. What's your favorite curse word?
I don't know if I have a favorite, but I do say fuck a lot. Actually, I'd probably say shit more. I'd say shit more because it's the end of my
Cool
famous
shit.
tagline. Yeah. Yeah.
If you were doing another profession, what would you want to do?
Wait, that's a bit of a trick question because technically I make music, but is it my profession? I don't know.
It is
It's
your
part of my
profession.
profession. It's part of my profession.
Yeah.
Right? So I would say if I was doing
Well, any of those that you don't do now. So not a creative director, not a music producer, not a creative technologist, not making cool shit. What else would you do?
I have to say I've got to go back to the roots and say archaeology. Yeah. I still have a big fascination. The big YouTube rabbit holes are around history and yeah.
And what about a profession you definitely wouldn't do?
Honestly, I don't think I could do anything in the medical field whatsoever.
That's a
The
lot.
whole thing just irks me. hence why I don't
Yeah.
go to the doctor.
I feel you on that
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So if heaven exists or whatever works for you, and you are greeted at those pearly gates, what do you hope they would say?
Who would say?
Whoever, God, Gabriel, whatever angel is there, whoever's meeting you at those gates.
Just welcome to heaven, mofo. You know what I mean? Do whatever you like. It's all you. Do what you do.
All right.
Yeah.
Manon Dave.
Yes.
Thanks, dude.
Z, thank you so much for this. This is epic. I actually can't wait to watch all of the episodes. I've been hearing about all the guests, and honestly, I'm super proud of you. This is gonna be a dope ride, and thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for making it happen before I fly out as well. I'm glad we made it happen.
Yeah, you're going to be on a lot of flights back to the UK after this.
You know, that's one of the things. People are like, oh, and I was like, I'll be back. I just don't want to be here as my full-time spot anymore.
Yeah.
And I need to spend time with my family.
Yeah, man, just watch the views roll in from the beach. That's the way.
And honestly, as I was saying to someone earlier, I was like, I feel like I'm a bit rude if I don't take the opportunity to live in a Caribbean island and work in a space that is my people and contribute to my country.
I'll leave you on this. I have to admit, as honored as I am to be on season 1, if season 2 is on the beach in your hometown, you need to give me a second episode. You know
I will. There will be. That is part of the plan. Part of the plan is to have London season, Trini season, New York
I need
season.
to be. Yes, count me in.
All right,
Yeah.
we will make that happen,
Cool.
folks. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to hearing or seeing you again. Take care.
Cheers.
See ya. Dude, yay! We made it happen.
That's all, folks, for today's episode of I Do What I Do. Biggest thank you to you for listening and to my guests for sharing their journey. I am Zara Bartels, and a super duper special shout out to the incredible folks that supported me on this creation. Keegan Simon, individual, for my logo and social graphics, Nikolai Labari for my theme music, and Idris Elba for being there and doing all the things while we recorded at TYX Studios in King's Cross, London. Walk good, keep doing what you do. Until next time.